Well met, fair travelers, for the Fantasy Companion. We got a minute or two before we'll get started. Just let people find the stream and get their notifications. But in the meantime, Hannibal says hello. Hey, baby. He was sleeping and is very upset that I had to lift him up to be on camera. But man, for a puppy that the last time we met, he was about as big as his head is big now. Oh, hi. Yes. So yeah, me and the Hannibal will be making out on camera. That's very exciting. I'm sure that's the in-depth content you all turned in for. Okay, time to get down to wait to folks. So there's your dog tax, and there's already like 40 of you here. So I think we will go ahead and get started. Okay, down puppy. So, just fair warning, the first part of this, Brian Reeves, who was one of the major authors on the Fantasy Companion, right behind Shane, is traveling right now, so couldn't be live. So we recorded a little bit something previously, but I am going to run that content first. And Hannibal says hi, right back to you, John. Thanks for being a longtime subscriber, buddy. Yep, we are very excited for this too. Also, a little dismayed at how quickly you guys crashed the servers this morning. We do keep changing and finding new solutions for that as we go along, and you guys are just ravenous for these things. So next time, hopefully, we will have an even better rollout that doesn't crash for a good hour. And but we promise we are looking into better solutions on that, because we don't like seeing the campaign go down right after it starts either. And so yeah, guys, let's see. So right now we're going to play a video from Brian, and basically we're going to answer the number one burning question, which from you guys is, I've already got Savage Pathfinder. What more? What good stuff am I going to get in the Fantasy Companion? Is it duplicated material? Why would I want to buy both? So we will answer all of those questions with this next little video. And let's see, other than that, let's check in on the campaign and just see where we are for posterity, because in 10 years we can check back on this video. But we are almost 500% funded. The current total is 23,210, and even more important, 353 backers. I'm going to call that a victory. Funded in minutes once the site was working. So we thank you guys for your patience this morning, as it took a little while to roll this out. And but the team behind the scenes are all excellent. We appreciate you, Scott. Scott's the one who does our newsletter and comes up with all the amazing stuff. And we're just waiting to push the button that he could send it. And so we were happy when we finally could. And then the site comes tumbling down. But the Fantasy Companion is a really great campaign. There's the potential for this to be a very beefy book. If you guys unlock all the stretch goals, all the things we have planned for it. I hope that's not a mystery for you guys. Like, we don't wait until we get the 5,000 goal to get more art and more content. So I know we want to kind of keep the feeling of the participatory nature of it going, but I hope it's not a secret to you guys that a lot of work has already gone into this book, and we're just going to be really happy to be able to show it to you as you unlock these stretch goals. I think we'll wait until tomorrow morning before we do all the day one stretch goals, because I think the first one we posted up was the Ancestries, and that was 10K, and you guys blew right through that. And but because the site's getting hit so hard right now, there's a cache mechanism to make sure you guys are, one, able to interact, and two, that it's not reserving up all of the little requests every time someone hits refresh. So I think our first archetype still shows locked, but that will be unlocked, and we'll add some more. Our first stretch goals. We'll add some more stretch goals, and we'll a lot of good stuff to show you. So to answer your question, what's the difference between the Savage Worlds Fantasy Companion and all the stuff you guys have already bought and hopefully gotten your digital versions of? And here, as long as you're talking Pathfinder, real quick, whoever had pirates in the office pool on problems that could have arisen on the shipping, didn't happen. You don't get your money. The books have landed. They are in, should I tell you, they're in Baltimore. And so they will swiftly make their way, hopefully, when they are offloaded from Baltimore to our warehouse, which is like smack dab in the middle of the country at Studio 2. And then they will start prepping those. They've got to unpack all the stuff they've got and then assemble them into the thousands of orders. So, don't expect your shipping number tomorrow, but those are now on U.S. soil and they are headed the right direction. So didn't face any more problems with shipping. Took the long way around. I think they went through Panama Canal, but that's our update for Pathfinder that you'll only get here. And then, guys, enjoy. I'm going to play a little video, and then we'll be back. I think Brian and I talked for about 20 minutes. Let's see. Oh, the link. So if you guys want the link to the campaign, let me share this real quickly. You can go to peginc.com, and let me do a share screen because just so you don't miss it. Before we do, let's see. Share screen, share window. That's the right window. Okay, so if you guys go to Pinnacle Entertainment Group, peginc.com, right up at the top, right next to Deadlands, there is a little banner that says Fantasy Companion. That's the easiest one to click. So you can just click Fantasy Companion right there, and there's the campaign. So now we're at 23,560. For all of our campaigns, we have a new GameChanger logo. So anything that is in the crowd hold stage, you can click on GameChanger. And we've got 4 campaigns currently. We've got the Superpowers, Holler, Hell on the High Plains, and Fantasy Companions. This talks about our game changers, but you can click on any of the campaigns here. So, for instance, if you're like, wait a minute, there's more Deadlands I didn't realize. There is. There's Hell on the High Plains. You can go to the Hell on the High Plains game changer, and you can be a pre-order. We don't use the term late backers now. We're calling them pre-orders. So Christine will be happy with us. And you can click on any of those products. Pledge levels, and then any of the add-ons. There's a great little link right under pre-orders. So again, you can either click on the Fantasy Companion right up the top, or Game Changer then Fantasy Companion. That will take you to the campaign page. Pledging is pretty simple. Well, I'll show you around the campaign page as long as we're here. So the first tab is the campaign tab. That'll look much like a Kickstarter story. It's got all the pledge levels, the good stuff, the stretch goals. We're going to get that one unlocked for you here presently. And then just the same little pattern you get from all of ours about shipping and delivery and all the good stuff. And then there are a couple other tabs you might be interested in. There's facts, frequently asked questions. So if there's an error on the page, what to do? Reach out to Peg Inc. Let's see, info@peginc.com. How do you upgrade? We can talk to you all about how you get your order and how you go ahead and do your upgrades. If you want to upgrade during the campaign or after, I'll tell you about when you are charged, all about shipping. And then if you're new to Savage Worlds, where to start. So those are the current facts. We will add more as the campaign goes. Updates, currently blank, but there's going to be one there before the end of the day. A big thank you for everybody. And then comments. This is where you guys can leave comments on what's going on, what are your questions, like will there be VTT integrations? And we haven't turned on the clock yet. That was something that was eating up a bunch of resources on our launch. So we will get that on when the campaign is a little more quiet. And so that's the page. And then again, on the right-hand side are the 3 main pledge levels. There's a $100 print deluxe, which is fantastic. You get the book and all the goodies in print. There's the print core, which is basically, we don't want to call it just the book because it's not just the book. There's also some other physical items coming to you with that. And then there's the digital. So it's pretty simple for this campaign. It's basically digital, physical, and the big print deluxe. So that's how you can get to the campaign page. I will put a link in the chat for those of you watching right now, so you don't even have to go through all those instructions. But it's basically peginc.com/campaign/fantasy_SWADE. And with that, we're going to get to Brian telling you guys the big question you all want to know, which is, how is this different than the Savage Pathfinder? And it's a lot different. I mean, there's very little overlap. The book has been informed by Savage Pathfinder and some lessons we learned, but there is a lot of different fantasy that's handled in this book. So here that is, and then we'll be live after that with Jody and Michael and anyone else who wants to stop by and to answer your questions live. And we'll probably try to get them in the chat as they go. So here we go with the interview with Brian. Wow, guys, your first day backing of this campaign has been amazing. Due to the magic of teleport, we were able to bring Brian in to celebrate with you on this amazing first day. He is not live. Well, he's still alive, but he is not live to answer questions. But we do know the one big question you all have for Brian. But before that, I mean, if you guys don't know Brian, if you saw our Hell on the High Plains campaign, Brian was the lead author behind that highly successful Kickstarter, which also had an amazing first day run, which led to total awesomeness. And since today is going so amazingly well as well, Brian, congratulations, dude. It looks like this fantasy companion is going to be well received and a lot of fun in the community. So congratulations, sir, on another big success.
Thank you. Oh, it's a dream of mine to have a hand in crafting the new and updated fantasy companion. And I think we have a good product for you guys this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. And I mean, looking at the huge response, again, thank you guys for blowing through our initial funding goal in like seconds. It could be a really beefy book if you guys unlock all the stretch goals we have planned for you. So there's one big question, and it'd probably take us a good 10 minutes to answer it. And caveat, contents may shift during pledge managing, during game changing. Because we don't know what you guys are going to open on the stretch goals. So some of these things might not make the final cut, but if you guys keep backing and sharing and telling your friends and upgrading during this process, hopefully we'll get all of the things we mentioned in there. Hopefully they'll survive the cut. The book is still going through some little final edits here and there. We have put out some review copies to the community, and we'll hopefully be showing you guys some streams with community reviews later on during the campaign. But until then, Brian, sir, the biggest question I've seen is we just did Savage Pathfinder. It's shipping eminently. How is this different? Like, are they the same? Are they overlap? What's going on? What do we find in this book? How is it different? Why would someone who already backed Savage Pathfinder want to back the Fantasy Companion? That seems to be the biggest omnibus question.
It is. It's the burning question. Well, Pathfinder, of course, is a specific setting. Comes with its own lore, it comes with its own world, it comes with its own monsters. All that stuff is packaged and ready to go for you. It has its own vibe, even a sort of traditional magic, high fantasy vibe with the elves and the dwarves and things like that, right? But that isn't all fantasy. There are different flavors of fantasy. So the Fantasy Companion is more of like to borrow an old phrase, like a toolkit, I guess, of sorts. And so the game masters can create fantasy games with a wide variety of settings and themes and flavors, I guess you could say, ranging all the way from Conan-style swords and sorcery to high fantasy dungeon delves, human-centric worlds, even like the kind of stuff you see in Game of Thrones with lots of scenes and intrigues. All of that stuff is possible with the Fantasy Companion. Just about anything else you could really desire. And so that's really the core difference between them. One is a specific thing, and the other one is a set of things to create your own setting.
Yeah, I took a sneak peek at the PDF, and I mean, you're not lying about the Baskin Robbins-esque-ness of like how many flavors of fantasy
yes
can cover. I mean, like
it's a buffet.
Fantasy. Right, it is. It is a buffet. I mean, I miss buffets. I mean, COVID just it broke my heart. I mean, it helped my waistline a little bit, but it broke my heart on buffets. But I mean, there's like dark fantasy, high fantasy, low fantasy, sword and sorcery, techno fantasy, urban fantasy, superhuman fantasy, like supernatural, like super style fantasy, natural fantasy. I mean, like the historical fantasy. I mean, like the list is really long on how this toolkit can help game masters create different flavors of fantasy. So, Savage Pathfinder and Pathfinder and Galarian is one amazing flavor that is super popular. But there is a other buffet of, other kinds of fantasy. And so that's what this hopes to accomplish. I think it does it really well. So take us in at the beginning, man. I think like the first thing I think people do when they want to know, like what kind of characters, what kind of ancestries can we look at? And there's a really cool one. Hopefully Brian will mention it. If not, I'll make him mention it. That I think you guys are going to really flip over. But tell us about the ancestral templates and where we are there.
Well, there are tons of new ancestries. Some of them we have are hoping to bring in as stretch goals, but there are already a bunch of them in the book. Your classic gnomes and dragon folk, and we have some more weird outliers like centaurs and things like that. And I have a feeling that the one you're talking about are the ones.
Yeah, well, right. So there's a whole bunch of ways to do diminutive characters of all types,
teeny ones, smaller than anything that we've had so far. And there are entire rules now for how to create those as characters.
Yeah, so for like Savage rules crunchy folks, that means that you can create small, very small, or even tiny scale player characters, which is super exciting. One of the ones that I'm like super excited about the mouselings because I mean, who didn't love Redwall? Right? Like who doesn't want to play a mouse with like running around in armor and like stabbing like cats and rats and stuff? Like that's
Reap it cheap. For those of you who remember Narnia, Reap it cheap. Yeah.
Right, and so like now there's a whole ancestry that's like super easy to build, those kind of tropes. Some of the other ancestries, and like differentiating between Pathfinder, right? Like people are like, well, we already have a really big bestiary, bestiary in Pathfinder. What's here the in Savage Worlds crunchy terms, like the Savage Pathfinder ancestries and like the monsters are built on like a +4 starting points. To kind of that's kind of the Galarian feel, but Savage Worlds, right? Most of us are traditional SWADE. You usually start with the +2. So the Fantasy Companion does that. You get those +2 options. So obviously you can add more if you want to do higher levels of power, not power creep, but power level. But we do start them at +2 just so they fit in more with if you want to fit them in with other campaigns or campaign worlds that are based upon +2. But some of the ones I really like Graveborn, not to be confused with Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is a great game, also weirdly fantasy and techno fantasy because you have guns and whatever. But there's Graveborn, which are actually pretty interesting. Scions, which are cool. Elemental Scions, which are like, I mean, who doesn't like to play like fire or like ice? So there's some cool options. Are there any other options in the ancestries that you're excited to dish about?
Oh yes, there are also not to be confused with mouselings. We have sort of human-sized rat people, ratlings, rat folk, and I think those are pretty interesting to them. Make pretty sort of weird out there kind of characters.
Yeah, I put those in one of the preview images. I think has the art for those. If not, like I'll definitely drop it so you guys can see because the art is fantastic for these. Loved it. So then along with character creation, I mean, everybody wants to know any new edges and hindrances. There's a really fun hindrance that I think Jody Black is going to love. It's called Blunderer, and it changes the rules a little bit about crit fails. So I'm sure when we see Jody playing some fantasy, she takes a character with Blunderer, there will be good times. Here's a big question, right? Like, here's one I think people are going to want to know. Are we doing classes? How does this handle classes? Is there what's the deal with classes?
So specific classes. This is Savage World, and I think our strength is that we don't create those packets that everybody has to choose between, right? We have a suite of options to build characters with. If you are really interested in replicating the kind of that you see in other kinds of fantasy games, we do have some guidelines for how to create those.
Yeah, so there's at least a whole page on like if you want to do a barbarian or you want to do a bard, or you want to do a sorcerer, this is how that would look in with these edges.
Yeah.
And that's really as simple as it is. Like, there's really no need to go beyond that. I mean, Savage Worlds uses edges and hindrances as its core, and I think those suffice to kind of recreate those classes. Yeah. And also, we do a bunch of archetypes. I mean, there's a whole bunch in the initial set.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if this guy back here, the little bear eating a bear, on my vibe, if he's going to be in there or not. But if you want tropes, right? If you want the standard kind of builds already, they're really easy to use. There's a bunch of archetypes that are going to be opened up just by back in the book. And then I think we've got a lot of really good stretch goals that will also hopefully add to that archetype list. So yes. I mean, between the two, right? Between like, here's the traditional classes, here's which edges and whatever, work with those. And the archetypes, you guys will be covered as far as, I want to play this kind of traditional concept or archetype or trope. Let's see, edges. Everybody likes edges.
We have many pages of new edges.
I like one that you've written, and it's still in the book. Hopefully it'll survive the final cut, but Chosen. That one's a super popular, interesting kind of one for fantasy.
A classic fantasy trope. The person who, unbeknownst to them, usually was born for some greater fate. They usually bear some sort of a marking of it, like maybe a lightning bolt star or something along those lines, right? A weird tattoo or something or some other kind of a birthmark. and everywhere they go, they seem to kind of attract the attention of the villains.
I see. Now I want to run a like Wheel of Time inspired one where you got a party where everybody has the chosen edge, but only
Yes.
one or at maximum one is actually chosen, so they all think they're chosen, and just like 6 chosen enter, 1 chosen leaves kind of thing. That'd be now I want to run that. Some other really cool fun ones. The Scorch. All the streamers who will know who Scorch is. There is a honorary Scorch. At New Edge. It's spelled wrong. It's actually spelled correctly, but when I was in there, some other really cool ones, and I think I'll only hint. We won't tell you what these are, but the names are fantastic. Sunder. That's a really cool one. And then Ricochet. Those sound fun.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that we gave some more options for archers. In the core rules, we have melee combat really well covered. We have guns really well covered, but archers, especially for fantasy, I thought it'd be great to have a couple more options for them. Yep. And we also have some of the old classics as well. Like we brought back Dirty Fighter, which some of you might remember from Pirates of the Spanish Main, I believe is when it first came out. A couple of others that you might recognize as well. Returned in and updated for SWADE.
Yeah, and I like that, man. I remember when SWADE first came out and folks saw some of the trims that were made, and people felt like they were never coming back to the system on some of these edges. And it's like, no, folks, no. Shane had a plan, and it was a good one. That there are certain things that better fit in a companion with the expansion of just even the space, right? Like trying to keep SWADE itself a usable page number. But just the space you have, and then the interconnectedness you can have between new edges, new powers, new power modifiers, those kind of things that really make more sense for a companion. And so that's why we're really excited that we're getting you out the companions now. So some of those things that people have been missing are now brought back in newer and more glorious form. Mm-hmm. So the gear. There was
White chapter.
White the gear chapter. I'll point out my 2 favorites, and I'll let you see if you got any other. But airships, because airships are cool. Love it. There's at least 2 kinds. And hirelings, because everybody wants minions in fantasy. And if you can't attract them charismatically, you got to pay for them. So
or if you can't summon them. So this has an opportunity for people to purchase some extras to come along with you to serve various jobs.
And, feed to dragons when they're hungry or whatever.
Right. And they're tied to stats that are actually in the back of the book as well. So I don't have to just sort of guess they're actually in there.
See, that's the thing. And perhaps if you guys unlock enough stretch goals, they might even make one of the cards, or there's lots of good stuff in there. Here's a big one, sir. Tell us about Strongholds, because that is, it's a super great thing we're seeing other companies do, and we did them in the SPC. I know that we didn't promote as much of the cool Stronghold stuff we really do have in the Superpower Companion for Super Strongholds, but they are absolutely like an essential part of fantasy. So tell us what's in the book about Stronghold.
So the Stronghold rules are built off of the same rules that we use for the Superpowers Companion. I believe we intend to do that for each of the companions. To give your characters a sort of a home base, I guess you could say, from which they can branch out and do adventures, but just a place to go and throw your treasure in a room, rest up before you go on to the next adventure. It also comes with adventures all of its own, right? Every stronghold is different. Each one of them has positive and some negative traits. And when you expand upon it, you're also getting an opportunity for sort of complications to come in, and it's just a constantly dynamic and changing home base for your characters.
And to protect that home base, there are like pages of traps for
protect or running into when you're out delving into some kind of a dungeon. Mm-hmm. Game have a whole set of specifically written out traps with the rules you need, so you can just toss them right in. Say, hey, Yes, roll a notice roll, and see if they happen to catch the part that's about to shoot out of the door.
Right? Did you guys buy that 11-foot pole to not disarm the trap? Oh, no, you don't have it. There you go. I mean, those were exciting. I think it was a lot of fun reading through that list of all the traps that are in there. Super handy for game masters. I mean, just to be able to, and mechanically relevant, right? Like not just name dropping, just traps. Like, I mean, there's some mechanical crunch there that helps you, work that into your game and make it interesting and different between traps for players. So. Yeah. I really like that. Some other cool things that I saw in the book, like corrupting magic. That sounds fun. There's a little section on downtime because that's a good game master and player kind of reconnect tool.
We have a bunch of new setting rules. One of my favorites is the giant foes. Another trope that shows up in a lot of fantasy where there's this absolutely tight creature storming across the kingdom, and the comparatively teeny heroes have to climb up on its body and find a way to stop this thing. So we have some rules to sort of help you how that happens.
That's cool. That's cool. The and that I mean, I'm just thinking between those rules and like playing the diminutive characters. I mean, you could do. I mean, whether it's like Secret of Nim kind of thing, or like, what was there? There was a Disney one that was like, maybe it was not Disney, the other studio, but it was like the toaster, like it was like the living toaster in the vacuum, and they all kind of run around.
Yes.
I'm sure these rules. Yeah, man, you could do some crazy stuff.
And the giant foes rules, by the way, could also apply to diminutive creatures trying to climb up on an average person. Because all it specifies is the difference between size categories. So and it gives you rules about how to work out. So you could be covered in tiny little creatures trying to stab you with these rules.
The Lilliputians are here. See, guys, that's not in Pathfinder. That's why you have to buy this book. You can I love it. So here's a cool thing: Arcane Backgrounds. I love that Bard is an arcane background. I think that's much cooler than being the like. I'm a little over the seductive Bard thing.
There's a lot. There's a lot of different you can play bards. I've actually played a bard that did not play a musical instrument at all. All she did was dance. And we actually have that sort of included in as well. So there is an edge called the instrument, but it doesn't specify that it has to be a musical instrument. You can have different kinds of things that count as your instrument.
That's super utilitarian and useful. Yeah. Wow. That'll be fun to see what people come up with on how that works, just because there's out of the box thinking that will happen there that I think will be fantastic.
I agree. We have new arcane backgrounds. Plus, there are two of them that are sort of fantasy specific. I guess you can versions or reskins almost of the existing arcane backgrounds from the book. They've been recast in a specific fantasy light. That would be the divine and magic arcane backgrounds.
Yeah, those look cool. I mean, people have fun with the new arcane backgrounds and just like the new interpretation. And that's the other kind of thing that I think is really cool. Just even seeing, I mean, this is a pretty cool set. Oh, wait. Before we get there, well, no, I guess we can talk about powers before we talk about power modifiers. It's just some of the updates and the extensions. And I mean, that's the thing I think with Savage Worlds and like, this where Savage Pathfinder is a packaged campaign world. This is, like you said, like a toolbox. I mean, right? We are a toolkit. We want game masters to have just as many options as possible to build.
Right. Some of it will apply, and some of it won't, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a Conan-based world where magic is almost non-existent and is dangerous to use and will corrupt your, then you might not use all these arcane backgrounds. But if you're using a emotional fantasy dungeon delve focused thing, then they might all be useful to you.
But I love seeing. I really want to get the power modifiers, but like there's some really cool new powers. Like one of the ones that really caught my eye was drain power points. And just, I mean, going to the meta level of how Savage Worlds works with PowerPoints and now Benny's interacting with PowerPoints and SWADE, the fact that there's a new power, Drain PowerPoints, I think is, that will be, to me, I think it might go up there with like boost and lower trait as something people might initially skim over because it doesn't seem super thematic on the face of it, but how you trap it and then how much it affects the meta game and the game of Savage Worlds, I think that power can be incredibly interesting to play at the table. So that one was really exciting for me. Any other powers that kind of stick out to you?
Some of them kind of. This is probably one of the few areas where Savage Pathfinder gave us something to build off. So there are 2 or 3 of the new powers that have kind of been inspired by Savage Path. One of them including Time Stop. Might be nice and useful in some certain circumstances. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And then there's like, and given fantasy and given some of the tropes there, I mean, there's a mechanical unlock, I think, for some of the powers too. I mean, what we call them like arcane and divine. So that's, so not all powers are available, and there's certain other unlocks that just besides.
Well, yes, every one of the every one of the arcane backgrounds that's listed in here has a list of powers sort of that are available to it, so that you can make sure that they have a flavor. Because that's one of the other tropes, I guess, is that not all spellcasters are the same in terms of put, right? There's also something kind of interesting. All the powers that currently exist in Savage Worlds are reprinted here, updated cases for with some new variations and sort of just made better, I guess you could say. And there are also going to be a couple of edges you can take which allow you access to some new types of modifiers for these powers.
Yeah, there are the power modifiers. That's one of my favorite things from SWADE. It's just super adaptable, and I just love adding those little flavor bits. And one of them that is super fantasy, especially like even just like computer RPG fantasy, but lingering damage. Love it. Just that trope of like bam, and then there's just little lingering. I mean, and that can be super deadly, and that's just fun. I like that. Definitely going to allow my players to throw that at monsters, but also throw it at my players and just see how that works out. And that it's a little bit of bookkeeping just to remember that there are lingering damages on this. Oh my God, it's so.
Oh yeah, but it adds some new flavor and some new things you can do with your powers, which is really neat.
Right, and I think it also it makes round to round combat interesting because there's those pressures, and there's also like, if you're the cleric and you have a player who's been afflicted by a thing and that they're already close, and then they have lingering, and like, can you get there, can you stop it, and it just adds another level of just interesting mechanics to play back and forth with during combat that is super relevant in the fantasy genre that's just it's just not covered by basic SWADE, and I think that's really fun. So you won't get that in Savage Pathfinder either, guys. It's now it's in SWADE. That's super fun. But let's see. People will be remiss. There's crafting. There are rules for crafting because that's a question that's come up a lot. And then there's a whole chapter on treasure.
Oh yes, with tables, many pages of wondrous items that your characters can stumble upon in their
adventures. Yeah, so I mean, all that's a kind of like you need to have it.
You have to.
You just have to. And man, we're already like 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the what are you going to find here in this question, and we haven't even touched the best or the beast area yet. So yeah, to wrap up, I mean, there's a whole world building chapter, and I think we covered that right at the start. I mean, just all the styles of fantasy. But what can we find in the bestiary, sir? And
we have a ton of new threats for game masters to heroes. There are a lot of mundane animals, just sort of ranging the kinds of things that your heroes might not only have to fight, but perhaps even have as animal companions. Things like elephants. We have war elephants. whales, wolverine. Okay, but a bunch of different common animals. You also have humans and demi-humans with full stat blocks for like a barbarian warrior that you might run into, commoners, various type ability, varieties of dwarves and elves, all sorts of things that you might use, including the hirelings that we mentioned earlier. Yeah, and then we also have just an absolute ton of monsters.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Brian overwrote the amount we have. And I don't even know if all of us can make the cut, but there's definitely room for you guys for stretch goals to beef up how big this actually ends up being and how many more pages we add to the book, because there's just a lot here we can throw at you now, and then some we might have to save for later. But even the ones that we don't stat out, there's also some really cool tools like new monster or beast tools that for building. Like if game masters want to build one that we haven't quite hit on the nail on the head with, but like there's new special abilities, which kind of handles
new special abilities. Yeah,
right. So there's a whole list of those. Some examples of those I thought were cool were like all around vision, just for monsters that don't have a blind side, that they can actually see 360. And of course energy drain, which again goes back to my personal joy of boost lower trait and drain power points. There's also like a monstrous ability to drain energy. So those are just two that caught my eye. That's just super useful because if we haven't statted it for you or haven't given you one that's close to either a trope or a monster you want to find from your other favorite fantasy products, or just out of your own brain, those are already built and hopefully balanced so that when you pop them in and they work just right, you keep that fast, furious, fun flavor. So there's a lot, Brian. I mean, that's 30 minutes is the elevator pitch, and we didn't even go into detail on all that stuff. I know you got to run. Any parting words on what you're excited about people seeing in this new product, or anything else like that?
I'm just excited to see what people are going to do with it, because I think it just gives you a lot of different options and tools to use in your own fantasy. And as great as the original Fantasy Companion was, I feel like we've just really outdone ourselves here.
Yeah, I mean, the first one was extremely popular, and then this just it brings it up to SWADE, and then two, it was definitely informed by lessons we learned by crafting Pathfinder Savage Worlds, which we're so excited you guys are getting your books momentarily. That those are so about to ship out. I think when we launch this, hopefully, I think the ship will have landed in Baltimore of all places, and so it's really exciting that's we're going to see you guys get your hands on those physical books. But man, I don't think there's any doubt that this is a super different product. There's very little overlap. It's very utility fueled and infused. And it could be very beefy. We could reach the 200 and some pages if you guys unlock all these stretch goals we have planned. So, congratulations again, Brian, on very exciting first day. And with that, we will go back to the live folks for your live questions, and we will the time for our teleport spell is about to end. So we'll go back live, and so we'll see you guys on the magical flip side. Of course I wouldn't have my microphone on. Wow, guys, you guys just crossed the 25K mark, speeding. I think we're almost to 26K. Thank you so much. That is amazing. There are almost 400 backers. That's the real number we love to see, because that shows us the community is coming back and embracing this. So with all the delays we had earlier, thank you for putting up with those. We definitely slayed some beasts, and hopefully we will have a smoother run on the next one. But yeah, you guys have come out in force for this. We have already, I think we've unlocked the first couple stretch goals. We'll post those tomorrow. But enough from me. We have some other amazing folks here who we want to get on screen. So let's see. Campaign page is amazing, but let's start adding folks. First, we got Michael. Welcome aboard. Clint, sir. Mr. Shane Hensley and Jody. Oh, and Michael, of course, disappears first.
My camera's having issues.
Well, welcome, folks. And congratulations to all on putting together something obviously the community is very excited for. Shane, let's go to you. What was the process like coming from the old Fantasy Companion, and like what things did you think you really wanted to hit on in the new one?
Good question. First off, excuse my appearance. This is Labor Day here at the Hensley household. I am sweaty and dirty and unshaven, but I wanted to pop in because this is a book that we poured our heart and soul into. I've been working on this for, I don't know, probably over a year in bits and pieces. And then fortunately, Clint, Brian, Mike, and others joined in and really added a lot to it. So the process from the old one, there were a few things that we really wanted to fix. The big thing, of course, was bringing it in line with SWADE and all of the work we did on the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition to bring it up to speed. One of the other things, a particular project of mine, some friends of ours, Mike McNeil and Steve Todd and Norm Hensley, and some of those guys, they run something called Savage Quest, and it's basically just a big randomized dungeon crawl, right? And the magic items, generating magic items for that was a little tricky because they were so dense. Wiki designed those the way that I asked him to. So, the density of it is totally on me. But I said, at the time, this was over 10 years ago, give us an extensive list of tables that can just generate everything, right? So that's why you wound up with a sword of water breathing that lets you fly and increase your stealth. Bizarre things like that because of the tables. So what we've done in this one is we've really streamlined those tables so that you get better designed items, and they're easier to get to. They don't take rolls on 10 different subtables to generate. So in a game like our friends' Savage Quest games, you can much more easily generate those treasures on the fly and get something good. It feels a whole lot more like that kind of original D20 D&D experience, which is what we're trying to capture there. And you can alter the rarity of items very easily by the way the table's set up. So if you're doing something like Warhammer or Conan, those magic items are very rare to come by. If you're doing more of a Pathfinder, D&D, Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms kind of thing, you can make them more common. So that was one of the big goals. Cleaning up the monsters, making them compatible with SWADE. Of course, one of the itches we wanted to scratch for a while was how to simulate some of the class feels of old school D&D and D20 games. And we did most of that in Pathfinder, right, where we have class edges. So we didn't have to do it here, which I think is a great thing because Pathfinder gives you that, it's part of the world. It's part of the DNA of the world that you are a ranger, you are a thief, whatever. It's part of the DNA of Savage Worlds that you can be whatever you want to be. If you want to be thematic like that, all those rules are there, right? We have many of the rules that you'll find embedded in the classes, for example, are their own edges. They might be exactly the same. They might be a little bit different just depending on the value of them and how we thought they should be set up. So you can do the same things two different ways. And we think that's really cool. The spells and magic, there's some really big stuff in there. So I'm a big Warhammer guy, right? I love Warhammer. And I wanted to make sure you could play, like Amber Wizards and stuff like that and cast spells that enhanced entire units. So we have battle magic in there. We have ritual magic, which addressed, some of the issues of, so for example, and remember, all of this may change before it comes out, but I'll give you a little taste. So we were playing, Mike was running Rise of the Rune Lords for us in Pathfinder, and there was a point where we wanted to cast some spells before we knew we were going to get into a fight that were going to just use up all the guys' power points just for utility purposes. They weren't going to beef us up for the combat or anything like that. And we couldn't really do it because it would take too long for the power points to regenerate. But we had tons of time to do this. We had hours to prepare. So we thought, and we've been tinkering this for a while with this for a while, and this incident really kind of brought it out that we needed to hone it and make it happen. Can we exchange time for PowerPoints so that we can do some stuff and then get into the fight and then use our PowerPoints like they're designed, which is primarily a combat mechanic, right? That's just how our system is designed for these things. Probably another one that I'm pretty excited about. I don't think we've nailed this one just yet. We're still developing it a little bit. Some of the utility spells, because right now every magic user in our game needs to take bolt, boost lower trait, protection, or deflection, right? I mean, those are pretty mandatory because we are a conflict-oriented game, and those are very valuable spells. But we want to make sure people are walking around with new spells like our unlock spell, lock and unlock that we have, and some of the more useful utility spells. And taking up edge slots with those is a little tricky. So we're giving you ways to get those without kind of blowing the balance of the system. And I think that's pretty exciting. Strongholds, we're continuing the system that we made in the Superpowers Companion. So it's the same template, but of course, all the entries are different, and there are other differences in there to make it feel more like fantasy. And what I really love about it, if you're a fan of TSR's old Birthright game, you could actually use that as the basis for a Birthright game, because there are encounters that come along with how large you grow your stronghold, right? You've got to take care of the people around you. That's why the flavor of that is very different than the Superpowers one, where it's mostly about battling the villains who may come after you. So I think that's pretty exciting. Mike is doing a great job on adding very interesting takes on planes, which I'll let him talk about when he wants to. So we're not giving you planes you need to use, but we're giving you ideas of how planes might work in your own campaign. You can mix, match, and use as you choose. And then the setting rules. So playing Game of Thrones is an awesome thing to do. The politics and backstabbing, but it might be a little tricky to kill another player character very easily. Well, we'll give you some rules for that.
I mean, you say tricky. I say that's an opportunity, but
It is, but it's tricky because player characters have bennies, and you don't want them to go down too easy because that's not fun either. But we've got some rules for setting rules that enhance intrigue type settings like a Game of Thrones. So I really think with what we've got in this book, you're going to be able to do everything from dungeon crawls to Game of Thrones to Warhammer to The Witcher to a probably even like a modern day. You could do a modern day like an urban fantasy kind of thing. So I think there's a lot in here. I know the big question is, how is it different from Pathfinder? We've got a good summation of that on the GameChanger page. And of course, we'll be happy to answer any questions, social media, on the GameChanger page, or in these live broadcasts as we go.
Yeah. So I mean, between the first 25 minutes of the stream and the thing, I think we've covered how it's different. I mean, the big takeaway to me is that there are so many tools here. This is a toolkit, a toolbox, a garage. Maybe, I mean, toolkit sounds kind of small for how much is really in there. And I think there's a lot of elegance in the book. For instance, like urban fantasy, I know a bunch of questions kind of came up because a couple of people were really excited about urban fantasy. I don't want to belie how much content for urban fantasy is in the book, but I mean, even a well-written several paragraphs on just how, what setting rules to use that make sense to emulate that with Savage Worlds is really enough to get a game master going, right? And same thing with the classes, right? Like, we could give you 100 pages of how to do, classes, or we could give you a very well play-tested, concise page of this is how, if you want to play a bard or a cleric or a paladin, this is how it's going to work in Savage Worlds. And I think because the system is very elegant and concise, that we can give you that. So this is a juicy, thick book, and it can get even thicker with the other stretch goals. But I'm excited just for how many different tools there are to really allow a game master to really custom tailor stuff. Is a lot of the questions were like, oh, can we do Harry Potter? Can we do Lord of the Rings? And so I think those are just a matter of choosing the correct options you can pick.
Right, and we walk you through some of those when we discuss the different kinds of fantasy. Here are the suggested setting rules we would use, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So Jody's got to run real quick. Before you run, Jody, we got a couple questions on like all the other current awesomeness that we're offering. And since you are the queen of that, do you want to give us a little brief rundown on one, what people can add to their pledges here, or what other campaigns and other goodness that they can get a hold of that's not Fantasy Companion before you run?
Yeah. So wonderful news. One of the reasons why we use our website is because it's a game changer. It's what we're calling it, so that you can add anything from any of the other campaigns that are on there, anything from our website. So anything from Rippers, anything from Flash Gordon, anything from East Texas University, anything that you can imagine that you want to kind of mix and match with your Fantasy Companion. Or if you backed us for the Superpowers Companion and you want that to ship with your Fantasy Companion so you save money, you can do that. You can go to our website. You can add anything from our website to your order so that you can really maximize your shipping costs. We can't compete with Amazon. I'm sorry. But we do try to give you the best bang for your buck when it comes to our shipping. And the best way to find out what that's going to cost you is just to put stuff in your cart and look at it. So that's what I wanted to say. I also wanted to say that we have Pathfinder arriving any day now. I know you addressed that earlier in the show, but for people who are just now joining us, it does still need to take time at the warehouse because this is going to be a huge fulfillment, y'all. We got to give them time to package it again and ship it out to people. But it is definitely stateside, United States. It is coming your way. After that, we've got Superpowers Companion. We've got, in July, we've got Rifts coming. We've got everything is lined up to get to you. Yes, Flash. We've got, yes. So we've got things that are coming to you. And like I said, if you wanted to save your money and ship those together, you can do that. Or don't wait. Go ahead and, get yourself a copy of the Savage Worlds core rules. They're going to be back in stock with Pathfinder. So you can get that shipped to you now. You guys can go ahead and get started using that. You'll get your PDF for the Fantasy Companion after the end of this campaign. So don't look for any download links from this campaign while the campaign is active. But after this campaign ends and we shift to the order manager phase of the campaign, that's when you're going to start seeing download links. And they might say coming soon for a little bit, but we will send you updates saying, okay, this is now available. This is now available. And as you can tell from talking to these guys, everything has been worked on for months now. We have all the art in. Unless we order some new stuff because of the campaign, but we have, we have everything really close to being done. So we're ready to go, y'all. And all we need is you, and you are backing us. I just checked the page, and we have right at 400 people who have backed us for over 26,000. Thank you. Thank you. So that's really all I'm here for, is to say thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the support you give us on social media, on our website, when you're talking to your friends in game stores, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.
Let me add very quickly, too, kudos to Jody and Simon in particular. We don't just wait for the ship to come in, especially with the delays that we've had for the last year. We are constantly calling, harassing, haranguing, trying new vendors, trying new ways. And we're a small company, but we have literally spent tens of thousands of dollars to try to get things in faster. So, by and large, everyone has been incredibly patient with the delays in getting stuff in. I mean, we delivered all the books for, Flash, Rifts, Savage Pathfinder. What else were we waiting on?
Holler, Hell on the High Plains.
Hell on the High Plains. Well, we haven't delivered that yet. But all the
they have their PDF. Hell on the High Plains.
They have their PDF. It's not to the printer yet. That's what I was going to say. So we've got all these things to the printer on, more or less on time. It's literally been just trying to get shipping containers. I'm sure most of you have heard about the shipping crisis. But Simon and Jody in particular, especially with the help of all the behind the scenes people, have constantly been looking for ways to get things here faster. And we're just blessed that you guys have been patient with us while we try to do that. And, I've done everything in our power to expedite and fix and change that situation. And we are still doing so. So thanks again for that, and continuing to support us, even though some of those haven't come in yet.
Thank you. We appreciate it. But now let's talk about what else is new and cool in the Fantasy Companion. So I think Shane and I are going to say bye and thank you.
Later, Jody. Appreciate it. Shane, thanks, man. Okay, guys, down to two.
Now it's the good-looking ones, right?
Right. So we have 155,000 comments because there were like 300 people watching the stream. So, guys, if I don't go find your comment, please do ask again. But between Clint and Mike, I'll take first crack because host privilege. What's something that you guys have had to work out, like a fight over a rule, or struggle with something? Give me some juice on something the two of you have really kind of. I know there's one right now, but that you're wrestling with to make sure it is perfectly Savage Worlds.
Oh, you go first, Clint.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
So I will say that it has been a lot of interesting and fun back and forth as we look at the diminutive heroes, because it is a concept that everyone loves, and I'm excited to do it. I've run a play test with it where I had a character playing a tiny little barbarian. We did the rules for creating your own race, which he chose not to do reduced pace. And so you have this like little 1 foot tall guy with fleet footed running around at pace 8. It was a little bit slapsticky, but it was what he enjoyed, which was.
Have you ever chased a mouse, sir? I mean, come on.
Right. Just the other night, Clint and I were doing some work on the advanced player's guide for Savage Pathfinder, and we were looking at the fantasy companion, right? Because it's separate, but you can still use it in addition, right? It can add content. And we were sitting there looking at one of the ancestries and going, oh, this is cool here. Oh, and if I take this here from the fantasy companion, it's even cooler now. So there's been interesting, looking at how things work together and plugging them like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely been cool, is looking at the situations where we're making the fantasy companion almost an additional companion to Pathfinder, of where you can take stuff from it and add it in if you want to and expand on what's going on. But he is right, to answer your question, diminutive. The small creatures, very small and tiny creatures, has really been tough. It has been, I will admit that straight up. Yes, Lucky Huckster. Yes, I have a small idea.
That is fantastic.
Small, of something that's been, but it's cool too. I mean, it's like what Mike was talking about. It's like if you look at like some of the examples from different things of like quicklings and fairies and things like that they can fly. Like pixies can fly at like the same pace of most people, like like just said, or whatever, quicklings. If you want to create a race that is smaller and slower, well, then that's a separate effect that you put on the race. It doesn't have to be that way. So it gives you the options. Now, if you want somebody, and then as was talked about with Brian earlier, if you use the giant foes setting rule, then you can have that small barbarian running up the back of a troll using, making a roll to try to run up the back of the troll and attack it. So, a lot of that stuff, I mean, it's been tricky to make it do, but it's also been worthwhile to put in all those options for various kind of things you can play. Because I mean, that's what the companion is about, the options to make all different kind of fantasy games.
And that's in addition to the really cool races that are already in there. Like a lot of time and work has been put in there. There's, I know, suggested variants, right? Talks about how to do it if maybe your setting doesn't have the same type of Saurian, things like that. And it's all really cool. I know there's packages that are referenced for like if you're playing a human knight or noble, that you can reference those and have cool little loadouts. Very awesome. I'm one of those people, I don't know anybody who plays Traveler, but I play Traveler specifically for the character creation part. And so I love making characters and things like that. It's got a lot of really cool options. And then, as Shane said earlier, there's a lot of really cool magic items. For those of you who backed Savage Pathfinder, we had a lot of stuff in there. A lot of it was converted from the actual setting. With the companion, we were able to do a lot more, unique looking things. There's some cursed items, some very fun cursed items. A lot of really neat themed things that, if you're running a maybe a lower magic setting or an urban setting, you might take items that are, more rare and use them sporadically. And with that in mind, I don't know how many people know how many types of fantasy settings there are. I had no idea until I started looking at the list, and it's like, here's this type of setting. Here are these new rules that you can use for doing it. And I think for just about everyone, they even gave examples so that you can reference. Oh, this is the kind I would use for Harry Potter, or Game of Thrones. He referenced that kind of thing. And that got me excited to try new fantasy settings, because I didn't even know that it was a thing, or read new books, either or.
Yeah.
Yeah, reading is tough, man. Reading is tough. Here's a question that I can answer. Are there plans for a world for the campaign settings? This one's an easy no. I think the creative juices that were really, if you want to scratch that itch, I think that work is kind of going into Deadlands Dark Ages, and which is not on the schedule yet, so don't ask. But we know that's going to be big, right? That's a big special project that's going to take. We need to clear the deck a little bit more for that one, so I think that's where that's going. But there are similar to someone else asked earlier whether there was a Doom Guard, something similar that we did a stretch goal for the sci-fi companion. No, we did the not the sci-fi. The superheroes companion. Sci-fi is also on the queue. Not going to say it's next because I don't think it's next. But it is in planning in the queue. But anyways, there are going to be some adventures. I know Brian, we didn't mention it in the earlier interview, but Brian does have some adventures that he's written. So hopefully those will get unlocked as stretch goals if you guys make it that far. And so if that is the case, then there will be some easy to play fantasy material for you guys. But right now there's not a Savage Worlds fantasy world that will go with the companion. I think the companion, the idea there is to not make it both a really big toolkit and then really specific to what a Savage Worlds, what kind of fantasy thing would be. So I think we wanted to keep it more on all the options, all of the above. And so that seemed a little incongruent there. Whereas something like Deadlands Dark Ages can really have a lot of very specific choices. And we hope you guys will like this. So that's a question I can answer.
Now, in that vein, I personally am a big fan and would like to see a Savage World specific setting, but I'm a big fantasy guy.
Yeah, and there is this little thing called Pathfinder that we worked on. That's
Why not
there.
more?
Yeah.
Why not more?
Yeah.
We just gave you all of the adventure paths for the very first Rise of the Rune Lords, guys.
We want more.
And Mike is working on more, so
I will put probably something I'm not supposed to mention, but in the vein of Landauer giving stuff away, I believe that in our setting descriptions that we have 11 different fantasy subgenres. It goes to 11, and then there's even an additional section that kind of talks about, and you could vary those, beyond that, it's but yeah, I know somebody asked about running Harry Potter, and there is a subgenre for strangers in a strange land, for people that find themselves in the mundane world suddenly thrust into a magical world, which is very much what Harry Potter is. But if you cover that, but yeah, so doing a single genre out of that when we're providing so much in a toolkit to do your own. It's basically take any of those subgenres and the setting rules and do the campaign. And then, as Mike said, there are examples from books and movies and and things like that you can look to for inspiration.
So here's one I in my brief skimming, I don't know if I saw this ability or not. Has the special ability for a beast to swallow you been added to the book for giant and huge monsters? I'd be maybe a little Vor fan there. I don't know, but maybe Mike,
Swallow Hole is in there, right?
Yeah. There we go.
It's in the
check mark
ability section, much like we have Rending Attack is in there. I believe Velociraptors have Rending Attack, for example, but that doesn't stop you from saying, okay, let's, you're playing a small guy. I am now going to use the rule for Swallow Whole on the giant. because it just fits and it's really awesome. And now the party can try to save you from being digested.
A bunch of people asked about Wish. Did we update Wish? I know Wish is in Pathfinder. Did we do a Savage World? Wish is like it's a lightning rod of a meta lightning rod. But did we add a Wish spell to Savage Worlds? Do you guys know?
I'm not 100% sure on Wish itself. I know we added, like you said, time stop, block, unlock. I know we added a new power modifier, which I really enjoy. For those of you who like playing the spell slingers, it's going to be one I think you use a lot. I'm not 100% sure on Wish though.
Okay.
Yeah, Wish is in there.
Is
Okay.
it? Okay, great.
Yeah. Wish is actually in there. Plus, like Shane said, we have some stuff that's like, when he talked about like doing the utility spells thing, there are some powers in there that are, I think, pretty cool, but they're more story elements, like blessing. Whereas like a priest or cleric or a druid, you can actually bless an entire town or village for a year. To basically, make everything work, just a little bit better than it might go to. It doesn't mean that you're going to save everybody, whatever, but you can at least give them a chance to survive a little more if you find a town that's really been, especially I think it's those cases where for players who really want to be heroes and you go into a town and yes, you might save it from the dragon, but the town is still devastated. You can give it that opportunity to recover.
That's cool. I mean, and that really I think that plays in nicely with the kind of the Deadlands fear level, issues and tropes. So just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
The Dartnet friend from Colorado, how's it going, Scott? He asked. So we talked about the diminutives, and I think the diminutives are actually something I'm personally very excited about because there aren't a lot of other even fantasy systems that really do those well, and we're still putting a lot of like play testing in to make sure that those work right. So I don't know whether or not you can just use the diminutive rules and scale them up as like, okay, so your human-sized characters are diminutive compared to giants, but can you play a giant hero? Is that in there, or is it something we have to consider maybe adding, or maybe next time?
That's gonna be a currently no.
That's a no. Okay.
No, because, and let me explain the difference here. There are things diminutive heroes can do that any hero can do of normal scale, like go into dungeons, go underground and do things like that, or be anything where when you get to larger heroes, you get the bigger restrictions on what those characters are capable of. And you end up with situations where players are left out.
Yeah.
By virtue of that. So it's a little bit, trickier to work
That's
with.
true. I mean, like the diminutives can still travel with your campaign group, right?
Exactly.
Like, what do you do with a giant? Like, they can't come inside the inn. They can step on stuff really, really well. But yeah, it's almost one of those things where it's like, I don't even know that many fantasy books, where the author can even, make all the room they want for it, have really done mixing those things. I mean, truly scale different, not like, Hagrid, Harry, but more like, Beanstalk giant, and you almost have to be in that realm, the diminutive in that realm.
Now, what if maybe the giant was half as big?
Maybe
half the giant.
Yeah,
halfling giant.
You could have a.
Can you imagine that dating experience? No.
I mean, there might be, a half giant kind of thing. It's like something that's half, that's still, about as big as we get without going into large scale. I mean, there might,
That's good. So Dartnet will meet you halfway, is what they're saying. Yeah. I like that.
The other thing that you could do is, we kind of talk about with the. Actually, I'll get to this. I keep kind of saying race creation, but I should change myself because for the fantasy companion, we call it ancestries again. like we kind of did in Pathfinder. In this case, it's actually because one of the things we have put in there is it doesn't have to be a species thing. It could be a cultural thing. We talk about, like, you're from the mountain people, so this is what your character gets versus a seafaring people and things like that. That's actually something we did way back in, I mean, we've talked about it before, but I know we did it way back in Lankmar. When we did Lankmar, that we talked about, like, you know, Fafhrd is from the mountain barbarian tribes, and, you know, those people, in SWADE terms, you know, don't worry about cold as much as anybody else. They're used to it, you know, and those kind of things. So, but, you know, if you have things like the superpowers companion, let's say, you know, we still do have those options for apply superpowers to a character. And my thought would be is if you want a giant character, make one who can, quote unquote, shrink to human size as an ability and just take growth as a superpower.
You know, I think
just looking at it the reverse, their normal size is big, but they can shrink down.
I think Erica commented on, you know, an Attack on Titan role-playing game, and it definitely sounds like, you know, you could do something along those lines if you did that, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. The Tyler Childers had a really good question about low fantasy. So he continues, I don't really like brutal systems that punish the player with negative casting rolls. SWADE is very powerful. With the new fantasy companion, any ideas for curbing power for low fantasy? So,
well, we do cover low fantasy, which gets into several arcane options, let's say. Things like that you'd see from SWADE, like dynamic backlash, you know, having to deal with one of the options we have in the Fantasy Companion is for corrupting magic. And in low fantasy, you more often see corrupting magic. So I think that's one of the setting rules we have for that. So it's not exactly that they're penalized. It's just that they could face worse results for failure from low fantasy.
The other thing I would throw in there is a rule for difficult to heal. It's not specifically for casting, but if you're looking for a more lethal setting, one that's brutal, there's that. And then in terms of spell casting also, I believe there is a background. There's a lot of backgrounds in there, but I believe there's like specifically one that functions off of a synergy and gives you reroll, I believe, when you're using elements or things of the same nature. Man, you guys have really good questions. And the problem is when you read like upwards of pages, eventually you're trying to remember the stuff that's prior. And personally, I've spent a lot of time recently looking at magic items and the planes. And so that's just what's in my head. But there are a lot of rules, some that make it a bit easier, some that make them a bit harder. And then some that, you know, still function in addition to the core SWADE optional rule settings that you can combine to, again, tailor your way.
So I'm going to branch off of Facebook users' questions, hoping for gunslinger-style equipment and edges to mirror the unpredictability of fantasy firearms. I'm going to turn that question into oh my God, there is a huge equipment section for you know, stuff. And I think one of the things you guys are still kind of wrestling with, and maybe it'll change depending on how much extra space we can unlock, is the, you know, for equipment, like fantasy equipment is, you know, there's like, oh, you guys are working like balancing equipment and other kind of things that may or may not still be. What are things you're excited about as far as like whether it's crafting or the equipment that's in the book?
Let's see. So are we excluding magic items?
No. You can absolutely include magic items.
So there's a few. I'm a big fan of the alchemical stuff. There's alchemical items in here that you can use to hinder or help. There are some new cool weapons that you can use. There are some of the unique magic items. I call them unique because they're actually on a chart. It's not like you're adding them as you would in a D&D style setting that give you benefits, and then maybe it has a unfortunate hindrance tied to it that allows for really cool role-playing aspects. One of my groups, we have a rule of death before metagaming, and it usually creates a lot of interesting and fun scenarios, and it's that kind of stuff that really pulls me in. So there's a lot of things like that.
Awesome. I'm excited for that. And we are over our hour, so I won't keep you guys too much longer. The power modifiers. This is such a useful, cool way to just change everything in the game to the way you want it. You guys want to talk about either the new power modifiers or just how those are going to work, with some ideas there? Like, those have me really excited just about the versatility of both magic items and spells and fantasy. So either one of you or both of you take up that one.
The big one that I have played around with a lot, I want to say it's a +2. It might be a +3. It might change, but it lets you use your power as a limited free action. So when but it's more expensive, right? Like, so you're not going to want to throw it around to kill a goblin or kill an extra little kobold. But when you're sitting there and you're like, we need speed to go off because we have to get out of here, and we need this other thing to happen because we got to take out this guy. You're the man with the plan for that. And it's a really cool, really useful one. You can only use it once per turn. And it definitely makes you want to take that extra power points edge to be able to do it. But it's a really cool one to use.
Clint,
yeah, I'd agree.
That's it. That's the last word.
No, I'd agree with that. But then there's also like some of the powers we have in there. You'll see from SWADE, but we'll have new power modifiers for them. It's like. I know during your conversation with Brian, you talked about drain power points, and you mentioned it as a new power, but it's in SWADE. But it does have a new modifier in the Fantasy Companion, that's in there to get more power points off of somebody when you cast it. So there is that. So, I mean, there's the modifiers for different powers. There is the thing, and as Mike just kind of hinted at there is a discussion that adds in the rules for limited actions and limited free actions that is in the Fantasy Companion, and that you would have seen in Pathfinder already.
I now just picture a bunch of people, like when they get the book, going through all of the powers, looking for the new power modifiers.
Yeah.
I mean, those are really exciting. I mean, because just because they're so useful, right? I mean, they can really just trap how your game and flavor how your game is going to play and how your character can, and even your bad guys. I mean, the residual one is exciting. Maybe it might be a little bit more remembering and upkeep, just remembering what's going on. It might be as simple as just putting an extra little glass beads next to your character on the table to keep track of that. But I love that. That just sounds like just some really fun effects. But we don't want to keep you guys any longer. And, again, thank you for backing us so heartily. Jody just commented we have over 400 backers. That's the number that we really like to see. And you guys are steaming or flying a magic carpet. What is a good fantasy? You are hasting yourselves towards 30,000. We're already at 27K. But yeah, remember, this is the Fantasy Companion. It's live today. It's on pegging.com. At the top of the page, you can click on the Fantasy Companion in the title bar, or click on GameChanger and then Fantasy Companion. To back the goodies we can already tell you about is it's going to be a book, obviously, and it's probably going to be a pretty thick book. Going to need a bigger book. And of course, the pawns. We didn't even talk about pawns tonight. We know you love the pawns. We love the pawns. And because there is a large, and hopefully with some stretch goals, growing bestiary, bestiary, whatever it is, we can't help but make pawns for those, right? So there's going to be hopefully a lot of pawns to go with all the unlocks. So please share it, tell your friends. There's going to be an action deck because you guys love those and they are amazing. And because we have, really, if we do all the art, if we're going to do all these monsters and we get all this great monstrous art and fantasy themed art, why not put them on cards, right? I mean, just really flavor your games. And then, of course, the archetypes. And these are my favorite because they just allow you to drop down, sit down at a table, play a game. Don't have to worry. I mean, they're the easiest thing to teach people Savage Worlds, right? Savage Worlds is a relatively easy system to learn, but it's even faster when you can just say, hey, here's some cards. Which one looks good to you? And, the character sheets are intuitive to read. They make a lot of sense. The art on them is really fantastic. So we're hoping that with some more stretch goals, we'll reveal probably tomorrow morning that we unlock a bunch more of those in this campaign. And and if you guys have eagle eyes, you've seen some of the social media posts. We've already revealed some of our monsters, but we're also going to be doing like a monster a day, a little Pokemon style reveal. So in the morning, we'll post the silhouette. And then later on the day, when someone guesses it correctly, we'll post with the actual monsters because we just have so many. So guys, yes. Last question on Dark Age. Yeah, of course it'll be compatible. I think that the great thing about how we're staging these is we're learning from each one we do. And obviously Pathfinder has really successfully informed this companion. We looked at what we had to do different in Savage Pathfinder versus our original fantasy companion. And so that just means we made more tools that are more fun for you guys that are system independent or, setting independent that are going into the fantasy companion. And of course, Dark Ages will be better for coming after the fantasy companion. So it is in the queue. There's lots of really good projects. Again, Dark Ages is special. I mean, really special. So one of the core loves Shane has. So we're not going to spoil that by it's not on the calendar yet, guys. So don't worry, but it's coming and it's good. I mean, it's not even good. It's great. But until then, Fantasy Companion is live. It's funded. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back on stream. I think we're going to come in and get some community feedback. So we have a few copies out there to the Friends of Peg who've seen some early drafts of the Fantasy Companion. So I think we'll bring them on and we'll I'll ask them what stuck out to them because there's so much in this book. I mean, obviously we've been motor mouthing for an hour and a half now, and we haven't even covered all of it. So between what we already have in the book and what we have planned with all the stretch goals, there's a lot. So we'll be back to talk about those. But until then, join it again on our peginc.com is where you can find it up at the top, Fantasy Companion. It is 540 some odd % funded. Thanks, guys. And 3 simple options. There's basically the digital, if you want the book, and then if you want all the things in print. And it's only $100. So we know money's tight. So we hope that there's a lot of value. We put in a lot of value for all the pledges. They're all way over MSRP. You got to love Shane for it. Every time we have a pre-launch meeting, he's like, add more to that level, add more, do it more. And I was like, Shane, this is ridiculous. Put more in. So, from Shane's big heart and all of our hearts, thanks guys for backing the Fantasy Companion. We're really excited about it. And we will see you guys soon.
Thank you all.